Grace and peace. I'm Brian Musser, the Baptist campus minister at Drexel University, and this is Peace and Power Christian Fellowship, the peace of Jesus Christ to change our lives, the power of the Holy Spirit to change our world. And we are continuing our series in Genesis 1 through 11, the meaning of creation, where does humanity belong? And this is the last lesson in this series. It's lesson 10 of 10. Are we going the wrong way? We're looking at the story surrounding the Tower of Babel, and this is the second part of lesson 10, and we're talking about what this story was kind of written to target. What it is it talking about? What kind of ideas is it developing in this story? And we're going to look at this idea of what these temple towers, these ziggurats, that were built in Mesopotamia. Many of these were built in Mesopotamia between 28 and 100 BC. Their names show that they were meant to serve as staircases from earth to heaven. So these sound like they were kind of similar to what we see being built in the story of the Tower of Babel. Look at some of these names. The house of the link between heaven and earth. The house of the seven guides of heaven and earth. The house of the foundation platform of heaven and earth. The house of the mountain of the universe. So these are the titles of these ziggurats that were being built in Mesopotamia between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers on what the Bible refers to as the plains of Shinar. So this idea, this tower that is being built, is kind of what we imagine historically is one of these ziggurats. And this is kind of a picture of one that was unearthed and uncovered. This is by Ur of the Chaldeans, where actually Abraham starts his life. And this is not completely complete. There should be more sections on top of it. And it's this kind of this stepped level sort of pyramid tower that was used for religious purposes. And we see a lot of these kind of ideas as we look at the passage of the Tower of Babel. They were trying to build a city and a tower in the city to reach the heavens. And they were using brick and mortar. So in Palestine, in Israel, in the land of Canaan, they use stone. Here in the land of Mesopotamia, they don't have much stone. So they're using these bricks and mortar. So it's the description of how they're building these is also accurate to how the ziggurats were built as well. Now, the city of Babylon, we hear in the Table of Nations that Nimrod founds the city of Babylon. But what does Babylon mean? There's this idea that it's this city, and the name of the city, Babylon, means the gate of the gods. And there's this description in the Nemu Elish that the thankful gods vowed to build a shrine of residence to honor King Marduk for his defeat of the vicious Tiamat and the slaying of her captain, Kingu. And we see some very similar words: brickwork, modeled bricks, this idea of raising the head, raised high the head of Esaglia equaling Apsu. Apsu would be heaven, having built a tower as high as Apsu was the kind of the heaven here. So the description in the Nemu Elish of the founding of Babylon talks about building a tower that reaches heaven out of brick and molded bricks, using some of the very same descriptions of the Tower of Babel. Now, the difference and the fascinating piece about this is, of course, in the Nemu Elish, it is a good thing that this tower is being built there, doing it to honor Marduk, the god of the Babylonians, the chief god of the Chaldeans. This idea that Marduk did something great when defeating Tiamat. So they get this temple tower built for Marduk. Now, although the passage in Genesis 11, 1 through 9, the Tower of Babel, is probably referencing this, or at least is familiar and knows about this. It's the opposite meaning. It's like this temple tower of humanity trying to reach the heavens, of humanity in their own strength trying to get into the heavens, building a tower of brick as if it could ever reach the divine, reach God, is lambasted, is made fun of, is just categorically just mocked and ridiculed. So we can see here that probably one point of the passage is trying to take these pagan efforts that the cities around Israel and throughout time, their efforts to try and build a city, make a name for themselves, get to heaven, is being mocked and ridiculed and being shown to be idolatry and a false religion and ideology. So this passage is looking at some of the things that were commonplace in the nations around at that time, in a contemporary to Noah through Abraham and even into the time of Moses. These activities were just being kind of ridiculed. So also this idea of one nation, one language comes up in some Sumerian texts as well, in the epic tale of Inmakar and the Lord of Aratta. There is a conflict between Inmakar, king of the Sumerian city Erech, and the ruler of Aratta. The poem tells of a time when there is no fear or rivalry among men, and describes how with one tongue or language all the countries worship the high god Enlil. The Sumerian myth describes a golden age in the ideal past, or it could be a prophecy about the future peace when all countries were organized in one super civilization, speak the same Sumerian language, and unite and worship to the god Enlil. So again, the Babylonian myths and the Sumerian myths talk about one language, one nation, united, and one people, and how they're forming as one people. And the Tower of Babel story builds off that, making fun of it, showing it to be sinful, showing it to be against God's purposes, showing it to be that they're trying to build this unity out of human endeavors and make a name for themselves this way. And it is just being mocked and ridiculed. It is being shown to be faulty and to being false. The story of the Tower of Babel uses ancient Near Eastern ideas and images. It is written directly to challenge and even ridicule these pagan ideologies. The building of cities and nations to make themselves great is contrasted with God making the people of Israel and giving them a name. The attempt to reach the heavens is contrasted with God's presence in the lives of the patriarchs. The bold names of the pagan cities and temples is contrasted to God's name for them, which is Babel. So there's this idea, this building of the city to reach heavens is going to fail, and it's going to fail spectacularly. Now, there's sin stories throughout this 1 through 11, and the sin of Babel kind of falls in with them, and it causes us and forces us to ask these questions. What was wrong about eating the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Why wasn't Cain's offering accepted? What was the problem with the sons of God marrying the daughters of men? What did Ham and Canaan actually do wrong that they get cursed? Why were the builders judged for their city and the tower? So quite often these sin passages make us ask questions. They don't give us all the answers. They make us talk about them, make us think about them, make us engage them. And all these sin passages in Genesis 1 through 11 really tries to get the reader to think and to ask the question, what is going on here? And what is actually wrong with what these folks did? The sin of Babel was trying to reach the heavens with their own strength, trying to make a name for themselves like God gave to Abraham, trying to build a home for themselves to replace the garden that God gave Adam, to keep from being scattered instead of filling the earth like God commanded Adam and Noah. The sins of the builders are framed in a way comparable to the sins of the pagan nations that surround the Israelites. So you could call it sins, or you could just call it sin, trying to reach some sort of glory in a way that God, outside of God giving it, looking at a way to get fame, fortune, and security instead of looking at God to give you fame, fortune, and security. That is what's going on here. It's the trying to reach glory without trusting God. So it can be multiple sins, or it could be one sin that is going on in this passage. So some discussion questions. Did the builders want bad things? If not, why were they judged? In what ways do we still try to obtain good desires in ungodly ways? Why do you think some of the passages are written in a way that forces us to ask questions? So I would love to hear from you. Drop down in the comments if you have anything you want to add to those ideas. There are 3 ways to join this conversation: in person Sunday nights at 5 p.m. in the JEMIC, or live Monday nights 7 p.m. via Zoom on these weekly wrap-ups and YouTube, on YouTube and or WordPress. And also you can find me all over social media: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, WordPress, YouTube. Like, subscribe, and follow. I enjoyed having this conversation with you. Hopefully it continues real soon.